it's a unethical process, and it needs to be exterminated. You know, water is far more valuable than natural resources, unethical resources. You know, if that, leave it in the ground.
Brian Doyle in for Ezra tonight. New Brunswick is sitting on a golden opportunity to become an economic powerhouse because of its untapped resources. But the recent anti-fracking protests there could hurt that goal. Well, when Ezra was at the Conservative Party convention in Calgary, he ran into New Brunswick MLA Brian Macdonald. And you won't believe how tuned in this guy is. Have a listen.
How important is exploring for shale gas in New Brunswick to the province's future?
Well, Ezra, as you know, we have a long history of natural resource development in New Brunswick. And so shale gas and the pipeline, these are issues that we need to pursue because it's important to our economic development. I mean, it's key to the future of New Brunswick.
Well, tell me about some of the history of natural resources for folks who aren't familiar with New Brunswick. What's the history?
Well, I mean, some of the key industries in New Brunswick are forestry, fisheries, and agriculture, all things that are important and use the environment. And we've also had a long history of resource development, a lot of mining in the province over the years. And so in my mind, shale gas development or any kind of petroleum exploration is part of that, and it needs to be done in a responsible way. But we all recognize that you can do it responsibly and still add a lot to your economy by doing it.
I mean, I look at the have provinces in Canada, BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland. It's all because of natural resources. Do you think that between shale gas and the proposed Energy East pipeline and the export facility, that could actually lift New Brunswick into have status?
Well, we certainly hope so, and we have to take advantage of the resources that we have. So in New Brunswick, as you know, we have shale gas, and that's something that needs to be developed. But we can do it in a responsible way that balances the economic benefits with the environmental concerns. And we don't have a whole lot in New Brunswick that will drive our economy forward, and this is one of those things we have to develop.
You know, I was doing an Atlantic radio interview. I said, listen, young men and women from the Atlantic, they will work in the shale gas industry. The only question is, are they doing it in Alberta and BC, or are they doing it at home in New Brunswick?
That's exactly right, and we're tired of seeing our sons and daughters go to Alberta or Saskatchewan or even now to Newfoundland to work. I mean, we want to have some of that prosperity here in New Brunswick.
Let me ask you about the riots, because they have seized my attention and the attention of many folks in the rest of Canada. I was shocked by the massive nature of the riot, by the violent nature. Torching police cars doesn't feel Canadian. The weapons that were seized, including a large cache of bullets, this was truly shocking to me. 40 charges, truly shocking. How has this resonated in New Brunswick? What do ordinary New Brunswickers feel about this?
Well, it's always shocking to see that sort of thing on your home turf, and New Brunswickers are not at all comfortable with it. Of course, we respect people's rights to protest, but the rule of law must be maintained. And in this case, obviously, those protesters went well and beyond a peaceful protest. I mean, firebombs, that's not acceptable behavior. So I'm glad that the RCMP was there to take control of the situation, and I think it's important to just make sure that law and order is maintained.
Now, when I call that terrorism, a criminal riot with a political agenda, I think that's the definition of terrorism. And there's two responses typically to terrorism. One is to appease or compromise or even surrender. The other is to harden and say, like hell, we'll keel over. Is there pressure on your government to collapse or to end shale gas or to appease?
Well, there's always pressure, and we are listening to people. I think it's important to know that these protesters, these criminals, they don't represent most New Brunswickers, and they don't certainly represent most First Nations New Brunswickers. And so we're still dialoguing with all of those people. We're dialoguing with our stakeholders, but it's important to know that we're intending to go forward with shale gas in a responsible manner.
Last question. You said something hopeful there, that these rioters do not represent all Aboriginal people, and I know that's true because I know there's some Aboriginal folks working on these seismic explorations, and of course in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, many Aboriginals work in the natural gas fracking business. Is there a more moderate leadership? Is there a pro-business, pro-development voice amongst Aboriginals in New Brunswick? Are there allies that we can strengthen or reach out to and make them the center of attention rather than feeding the extremists?
Absolutely, and the Premier's been dialoguing with First Nations all around the province to do that, to find those people that are supportive. And I think that those communities are part of our province. They're an important part of the province, and like the rest of our province, they need that economic development. And so I think it's a matter of convincing people, making them understand that this is good for them, this is good for the province, this kind of economic development is exactly what we need, and it can bring all kinds of prosperity.
I want to ask you one last question. I'm an Alberta boy, and now I'm in exile in Toronto. But New Brunswick, it's a smaller province, it's a little bit out of the way way. I don't think most Canadians have a chance to get out there. And I see the Premier and I see your government, and I feel like it's beleaguered a little bit. I mean, you got these professional riders backed up with troublemakers from out of province, even out of the country. You got foreign money coming in, and part of me thinks, oh my God, what can we do to help strengthen the government in New Brunswick? I mean, not that you'll be tipped over or anything, but I just feel like the rest of us have got to help in some way. Is there something we can do even morally to stand up for New Brunswick's right to find economic development?
Well, we always appreciate the moral support, that's for sure. And I think our Premier is being a strong leader in this case. You know, he's dealt with the issue at hand, but he's also continuing to negotiate with stakeholders. He's still listening to people. And our plan is to proceed with, you know, we're in the exploration phase now, so we're not fracking wells, that's not what's happening. We're exploring. And so the plan is to see what's there and go forward in an environmentally responsible way.
Well, I wish you good luck, and I'll keep an eye on things. And I hope New Brunswick joins the list of have provinces, and all you New Brunswick's young men and women can find great jobs at home. Nice to talk with you today.
Cheers.